everybody. Thank you for watching our video. I'm Starlene Brighter here with Linda Berry. We are going to be talking today about the Sun opposition to Jupiter in the sky, both transiting planets, and we're going to be looking at it from a vibrational astrology lens. So before we get into that, I just want to say hi, Linda. Great to see you today.
It's great to see you, Starlene.
As always, it's always a joy to do these videos with you. So thank you for being my partner in this. So first off, we're going to talk about the Sun opposite Jupiter, and we're going to show you the astrology charts for that. So we're going to put them up on the screen.
Okay, there we go. Now,
there we go.
We're going to be talking, we're going to try to put this in. We're going to make a couple of references to vibrations and things, but we're going to try to put this in a form that will make sense to those of you that aren't astrologers. We want to communicate with everybody, and we're working real hard at it. Now, this is the natal chart for when the Sun opposes Jupiter. It's going to do that. This is Wednesday, the 18th of August. Is that right, Starlene?
Yes, it is right.
And tomorrow evening, the Sun and Jupiter are going to be exactly opposite each other. Here's what happens. We've got this cycle in the sky, and we're basically picking up peak points in the retrograde patterns of the planets. Now, the planets don't actually go retrograde up there in the sky, but when we're sitting here on Earth, they look like they do.
Yeah.
Because they, against the backdrop of the stars, you'll see them at one place, and then you'll see them at an earlier place, and then you'll see them at an earlier place for a while. Rather than continuing to move forward and getting later and later in the order in the sky. And this is because right then the Earth's moving faster. The relationship between that planet and the Earth is that the Earth's moving faster. And when the Earth moves faster than the other planet and they're in a certain interaction, then it's as if the other planet gets further away. Moves backwards. The planet seems to move backwards. So, and this is a cycle we live with because this is what is impacting us here on Earth.
Right.
So, here we have Sun and Jupiter, and they, in this chart for the exact time when they're opposite each other, they're kind of just laying across the chart horizontally. It will be at 8:28 p.m. tomorrow night, Thursday, the 19th of August. All right. And that is Eastern Daylight Time, folks. 8:28 Eastern Daylight Time. That'll be 5:28 Pacific Daylight Time, and you're just going to have to adjust for other time zones. Now, we had this up here, and Starlene says to me, why don't you put in Eris and Haumea? We've researched them. We know what they're about.
We sure do.
And so I went ahead and put them in, and oh my goodness. We had Sun and Jupiter here just sitting across the chart with nothing aspecting them. Just the two planets opposite each other. Here, I'll show you. It looked like this. See?
Wow.
Not much there, is there?
No.
We added in Haumea and Eris, and we got a whole story. What this is telling us is that Haumea and Eris, first of all, they're opposed to each other. They have been for a while. They will be for a while. They move so slow that any aspect they get into lasts quite a long time.
Mm-hmm.
So Haumea is a kind of a sense of birth or rebirth, a new dawning, a something coming in that is fresh and amazing, and like this beautiful sun coming up, and you see the dawn of a new day. Haumea is just, that's her positive aspect. Sometimes when she brings a new day, she has to clear out the old stuff, and sometimes that's not so comfortable.
Right.
Eris, so you've got this dawning of a new day with the growth and expansion with Jupiter and the sun. And Eris comes in there and says, yes, provided that you don't block anything out and you include everything in the pattern. That everything has to connect to everything else. This has to work for everybody. You can't say, oh, these people aren't that important. We won't worry about what happens to them. Whether you're talking about the United States or you're talking about Afghanistan, you have to cover the whole pattern. And that's the big message that Eris is getting here, is that if you want a good flow of energy, you got to face it. You got to do all of it.
Right. No burying your head in the sand. It won't work.
Not with this energy, it won't.
Mm-mm.
It's going to backfire on you big time.
Yeah.
Okay. So we've got two vibrations that are very strong for this Sun-Jupiter opposition. Remember, this Sun-Jupiter opposition is a pattern that Jupiter is going to carry for a while. So this is a message to us to help us understand how to expand and grow our businesses and our lives for a good number of months. This is like a key to growth. And the key is you can have a new birth if you will include everything. If you will not exclude any part of the pattern from the process of what you're doing, which is kind of wonderful and kind of scary. Now, there are two vibrations that are extremely emphasized at the time of this opposition that are going to carry as part of the Jupiter energy over the next months.
Right. Before you get into that, how about we talk a little bit about the 11th vibration? I know we've talked about it before in other videos, but it's always good to talk about. The 11th vibration is the vibration of feeling like almost frustrated with the status quo, wanting to do more, wanting to reach out into the world and do more and be more. So this can be part of this energy that we're going through. On the flip side of that, we can also channel that energy to be quite good. And Linda will explain the planets to you or give you a little bit more about the 11th harmonic. But it's important to keep that in mind when we read the harmonic charts too, or the vibration charts.
There's a sense of movement in 11. It's going somewhere.
Yes.
It's not happy with where it is, and it's on its way. It's always restless. It's always dissatisfied. It's always reaching out for something new and different. So in this case, on the left-hand side, we've got Mars, Jupiter, Pluto, Moon, and Mercury. And the Moon and Mercury are really, really tight with each other. They're in the same degree, which says that there is a focus in this pattern on emotional dissatisfaction. Dissatisfaction with where we've been and what we've done in the past, and a sense that we need to reach out and find a different or a new way to do things. This is in your personal life. This is in our public life. This is what Jupiter is saying. To grow, you have to do this. You have to build something new. And growth is almost like compulsory right now.
Right.
You've got Jupiter with Mars and Pluto there. And not only that, but notice something very interesting about this. The Mars is 26 of Pisces, just talking about the degrees, almost 27. The Jupiter's 29 of Pisces. The Pluto is 2 of Aries, and the Moon and Mercury are 6 of Aries. We went right over 0 of Aries here. We are embracing it. And this means this is very much talking about the world as well as each of us as individuals. This indicates a major movement, an expansion here, and maybe one that's not like we expect. There are 2 things here additionally in this chart. You have Saturn over here on the right with Neptune up at the top. And that, when Saturn and Neptune combine together, and this is in an easy flow, it has to do with spiritual seeking. Seeking an answer that's deeper and more comprehensive, that's not just a superficial answer. Trying to understand what's really going on, what this means, what is the long-term consequences, and how can we do something that really works on a long-term basis.
That was great to explain that. And I'm curious, with mixing Eris in there in that pattern and Haumea, because Haumea is making that conjunction, I guess not to the sun, but to Mars, which goes back to the sun. But
Haumea is on Mars, Jupiter, Pluto, and the sun.
Oh, it is on the sun. Okay, I couldn't quite tell.
Yeah, it's a sextile on the sun.
So yeah, bringing both of those in there too, they really kind of like tag team this cluster of planets, right? And they give another layer to it. So it's been useful in my practice. What I've been, since you've done that research and presented it at the conference a year or so ago, being able to use those and know the meanings of it was really helpful, because it gives another layer to understanding what's going on and how to utilize this energy in the best way. So would you say that since this is 11th harmonic and this is a point in the year where the sun is opposite Jupiter, happens once a year, would you say that this is like the next cycle to the point where you go to when the sun is conjunct Jupiter? Like, would that cycle be that long?
It's really hard to know which is the beginning. Typically, we look at when 2 planets are conjunct each other.
Mm-hmm.
So like when the sun is conjunct Jupiter, as starting the cycle.
Okay, so we're like in the mid-cycle. Yeah,
because this is like the full moon for the Jupiter-Sun cycle.
Right, so that would even give it a little bit more of an intense feeling, right? If I'm not mistaken, yeah. That would be more.
This is the point when it pops out in the world and reveals itself.
Yes, I love it.
And I'll tell you that Mars, Jupiter, Pluto often represents wealth.
So it could be channeling the energy the right way could produce wealth. That's fantastic.
It could produce wealth, and with the sun opposite it, the sun could throw light on how the people that are wealthy are operating, whether they're operating in responsible ways that benefit the world.
Oh, right. Exactly.
I don't know if that's what it means, but that's one thing it could mean.
Exactly. This is like the exploration of the transit. So it's interesting to look at. Yeah. And then look at what's going on in the world.
Yep. So shall we look at 26 now?
Yeah. Let's look at 26.
Another exciting pattern.
No kidding. Oh my gosh.
And again, there's something interesting here. In the natal chart, notice that Jupiter and the sun form a green triangle with Haumea and Eris. This is called a mystic rectangle.
Yep.
Look in 26. They're part of a mystic rectangle again. It's not with the sun Jupiter, but they are related to the sun Jupiter. Well, Haumea is. Eris isn't actually, interestingly enough, not related to the sun Jupiter. She is interacting with Mars and Neptune and Pluto and Haumea, but Eris is not with the Sun, Jupiter. Haumea is, though. Now, let's talk about what 26 is.
So 26 is really this, it's 13 times 2, 13 harmonic, or 13 vibration times 2. And that 13th energy is feeling like a need to be special, or to do special things. And then since it's times 2 to make it 26, it's like doing it with other people. You need to feel to do things special with other people. So that is, 26th harmonic.
Right. That is what's happening with 13 and 26, and you kind of always have to talk about 13 if you're going to talk about 26.
Right.
Is that in 13, the person is digging down deep inside of themselves.
Right.
To find what is special or unique about them. They don't really think of it as special. A lot of 13s don't like that word because it's like they're better than somebody else. And many 13s do not operate out of an I'm better than somebody else type of pattern. Instead, they are saying, I've got to figure out what's really me that I want to express as me in this world rather than just being a part of the crowd. What is my special gift? And it's more like that. But when it's in 26, it's about what's your special gift too?
Right.
And how can we work together to bring out your special gift and my special gift? And, with this being 26 and it having this Jupiter with the Sun. Now, this is an even vibration, so the Sun and Jupiter are conjunct each other. I know that's kind of deep into the vibrational stuff, but just take my word for it that the Sun and Jupiter in even vibrations will conjunct. In odd vibrations, like 1, 3, 5, and so on, all the odd vibrations, it'll be exactly opposed. In even vibrations, it's conjunct, and that's what you see here. See, 11 was an odd vibration, and there it is opposed.
Mm-hmm.
But 26 is an even vibration, and it's conjunct. What you've got here is that sense of growth and expansion, energy put into it from Mars to bring about a new beginning. And there's something very important here. There is Jupiter trine Saturn. And what that means is this is telling you that to connect in and help other people to connect in and bring their special gifts into expression and make contributions with them in the process of what is happening here on Earth, that they need to do this step by step. They can't just pop out and get really big all at once. They need to grow some and then grow a bit more and then grow a bit more. Jupiter and Saturn helps Jupiter to do systematic growth that really works.
Absolutely.
And that's what we're talking about here. And
I always like to use the keyword of Saturn and Jupiter as planning and organizing and planning and organizing, because it does that. It's just that unrolling, unraveling of that.
So that's what we've got here is we've got this sense of systematic, disciplined growth. Step by step, moving into the pattern. In 11, we have a restless seeking of something else that has a spiritual tone to it. I can't tell you exactly what that means, but it's a sense of something that extends into other realms beyond just our earth plane. So, in general, we're talking about growth here through opening up to your connection to other people, assisting other people as well as them assisting you, seeking a new way of operating. And this is very strongly shown here.
I think that was really good, and I just want to sum it up a little bit. So what you're saying from this, which is tomorrow, we're recording the day before when this is exact, that you would say that this energy that we talked about will lead us into the next few months until the next part of Jupiter when it conjuncts with the sun instead of opposition with the sun. Is that right?
Right.
Yeah. So this is something for us to work on within ourselves, like she was
about
saying.
6 months.
About 6 months, right?
We'll have the conjunction 6 or 7 months. There's a time before Jupiter goes direct where it traces over the same space it's going to retrograde back over. When it's walking through the space that it's going to retrograde over, we call that walking through the shadow. And from March 27th to June 20th, Jupiter was walking through the shadow. And then on June 20th, it went retrograde. It's in the middle of the retrograde right now where Jupiter is opposite the sun, and it's going to go direct on October 18th, and it's going to be back where it started from at the start of the shadow. And then it's got to walk through, like walk out into the light between October 18th and January 9th.
Jupiter will be in the degree that it is going direct in from September 27th to November 7th of this year, of course. And it is going to be in 22 of Aquarius, which leads us into the Sabian symbols. Linda's going to talk about the Sabian symbols.
Before we do, first of all, notice that that's almost 2 months. Well, it's 20 days less than. So it's about 40 days it's going to be in there in that degree. When they're turning direct, they just sit there for a long time.
Yeah.
All right. But I did want to comment a little bit on Jupiter. Jupiter helps our life to grow and expand. It helps our businesses to grow and expand. And one of the things that can happen is that each year it goes retrograde for a while. And when it goes retrograde, sometimes the things that have been developing really well in our life, they kind of seem to fall apart. Well, it's okay. Because basically what's happening is it's like Jupiter said, you can do this better. And Jupiter kind of like takes it back into the factory to rework it. And typically a few months later, after Jupiter goes direct, when it goes back over that same area where things fell apart, things will blossom and start moving forward. So if you find that things seem to be getting really strange for a while after Jupiter goes retrograde, it just means things are going to be amazingly better later.
Right. It's almost like a do-over to kind of
figure out. It is a do-over type thing, yeah.
Figure out what is going on, and the things that are like near, you said this about Mercury once, I think, but the things that are near to needing attention, they pop up for you to give them attention and figure them out, right?
This is a little different, and that is what Mercury does, yes. Jupiter's a little bit different because what Jupiter does is Jupiter's like an impetus to make it bigger, to make it grow, to make it expand. And so when Jupiter goes retrograde, it kind of does a, let's think about this a little more thing. There's a kink down there. We need to pull this apart enough to fix that kink. That kind of thing. So it's like taking the pattern, it's taking the process and reworking the things that were growing. But, they can't keep growing while you're reworking them. So they have to slow down a bit so they can be revised. And then they can move from a solider foundation forward more effectively.
That makes sense. Yeah. Very cool.
Okay, so we've talked about the astrology of the Jupiter opposite Sun.
Yeah.
And now that was our vibrational astrology part. And now we can do our non-vibrational astrology part and talk about the Sabian symbols.
Yes, now we can talk about the Sabian symbols.
Okay, so I'm going to share again so you can see what's going on with the Sabian symbols. Here we go. Now, we have two parts to the Sabian symbol because the Sun and Jupiter are opposite each other. So they're in opposing symbols, they're not in the same symbol. Remember, we're talking about a behavioral process in the natal chart, a soul intent in the 13th vibration, and a spirit lesson in 169. Now, remember, this is not vibrational astrology. This is not the way we interpret 13 and 169 in vibrational astrology, but this is how they seem to work in the Sabian symbols. All right, so behavioral expression for the Sun, what's being lit up and brought into daily life. You're coming together with others, sharing with those whom you have things in common with, seeking to resolve confusion by stepping back, relaxing, and seeking to express what you know and sense in a coherent way, integrating your ideas with the ideas of others. So this is about stepping back a little bit, not being too attached, and being able to figure out how things fit together. Now, the spirit intent at this particular time is related to dealing with competing demands for your time and attention, learning to organize and exploit your potentials in ways that maximize your opportunities. That sounds pretty good, doesn't it?
Yeah, that sounds great.
So, but it's indicating that you need to step back and have this kind of overview so you can figure out how to deal with these competing demands. And the point of this is to open to a growing awareness that there are so many opportunities and possibilities available to you. So that's what the Sun is throwing light on. Now, this is the most effective growth process expression of the Sun's energy as it's coming through this opposition. But sometimes we have trouble doing it. And here are some indicators, some kind of signs along the road that indicate that you may need to stop and think about this and make a shift to what we just talked about. So if you find yourself being intimidated by others, I'm not going to just read this, but I'll just go over a few of the high points. Confused, intimidated by others' ideas, feeling like there's not enough room for your ideas, and you don't know how to integrate all this information, all this noise that's going on around you. Then you need to go back and look at the behavioral expressions up above. This shows what can happen is that you can feel like you're being torn apart by the competing needs of others. And you can feel inadequate and discouraged, like you'll never get what you want. These are some of the kind of indicators that you need to go work with this energy if you start feeling some of those things. Yeah. Here's the first part, the behavior expression all together, both the positive expression and the signs of problems. Here's the soul intent all together. with the positive expression and the problem areas. They're contrasting. And in anything like this, it doesn't mean that you are going to the extremes. You need to realize that this is set in extremes, but you could be any place in between. And some of one and some of the other is what most of us do. And here's the spirit lesson in the same way. The and/or separates the growth expression from the issues that may come up. Okay, now let's look at Jupiter. Okay. Jupiter suggests that this may be a time to sacrifice your personal needs to be of service to the needs of others, to move out of or beyond ego patterns. Now, the soul says, wants you to take some time to retreat from the world and go more deeply inside of yourself. And we've got this bit about sacrificing your personal needs again. It came up in two of these. That's really interesting. Now, the spirit lesson is for you to learn to recognize your worth and the worth of others, to be able to make connections and relate to others based on everyone putting their best foot forward and relating to each other in positive ways. Now, the difficulties are if you hold too much on to yourself and what's good for you and feel resentful about what you don't get, you can't, it's harder to become part of everything that's going on around you. On the soul level, there's a danger of you neglecting yourself or hiding away. On the spirit level, a feeling again of not being able to fit in, devaluing yourself and feeling out of your depths. There's a core thing here about recognizing your worth and the worth of others. And it says you're going to block yourself off if you think you're not worth anything. Now, again, here are the basic patterns. Jupiter, the behavior expression of tree felled and sawed, sacrificing your personal individualized needs to be of needs to others, like the tree is sacrificed. It's about releasing old ego patterns. The soul intent is a woman entering a convent. In other words, going deep in your spirit. And again, there's a focus here on being of service to others. And then we have the spirit pattern is an embassy ball, a dance where you honor your worth and the worth of others, and you can share and make connections to each other, and in a positive way.
So that was really awesome, Linda. Thank you so much for sharing that. So to summarize what you said about the Sabian symbols and Jupiter and the Sun, what would you summarize that as?
Okay, for the Sabian symbols, there's an emphasis on how important it is for you to be aware of the needs of others as well as your own needs, and not let your personal needs be dominant. That you can expand and grow when you respond to the needs of others. So if you're in a business setting, that's your formula.
Yeah. Ah, that makes sense. Wow, awesome. Well, thank you so much, Linda, for everything. I'm so grateful we got to do another show together. And of course, I look forward to doing more. Thank you, everybody that is watching, and let us know, if you see where this is hitting in your chart, if you have something to add or want to share with us, feel free to comment below. We thank you so much for being here, and have a wonderful rest of your day.
Have a blessed day. We love talking to you.
Bye.
Bye now.